Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another reading vlog where I'm gonna be reading The Merciful Crow. So The Merciful Crow is book 1 in the Merciful Crow duology, which is a fantasy duology. And in this book we follow a young chief from a low caste of mercy killers who strikes a bargain with a prince to preserve the future of her clan. And although I had heard of this book before, I don't think it was very popular, at least not as much as other young adult fantasy series. At least with the people that I follow, I don't think many of them have read this book or this series in general, but I was very interested and so I decided to read it. Also, I really love the cover of this book, but I like the cover of the second book even more. But anyway, there are definitely spoilers for what happens in this book, and having said that, let's go into the reading footage. Okay, so I have read part 1 of The Merciful Crow, and I want to start by saying that the first line of this book was, "Pa was taking too long to cut the boys' throats." And I thought that was a great opening line. And so Pa is the chief of the crows, and the crows are a group of people who take the people who have gotten sick with the plague, and if they're still alive, they mercy kill them. That's why they're the Merciful Crows. And then they burn the bodies so the sickness won't spread. And so when this book begins, they were called to the royal palace. And we find out that they have some bodies to take from there. And we also find out that the hawks are the guards and they are war witches. And basically they can heal wounds. And we also find out that every different group of people have different abilities. The hawks, for example, like I said, can heal wounds, and the phoenixes can burn, and I think it's the sparrows can like hide, and yeah, every different group of people can have different abilities, which are their birthrights. And the crows, they don't have birthrights, but with teeth that used to belong to other people, they can access other people's birthrights. And our main character, who is called Fi, she was born a witch, which means she is meant to be a clan chief of the crows. And when they are there at the palace to take the bodies, the queen doesn't want to pay them. So Fi demands that they should be given some teeth. And so they are given teeth from like whole generations of phoenixes, which are very valuable. And the queen herself is not a phoenix, or wasn't originally a phoenix. She was a swan, and she married into the phoenix family. And once they are out of the palace, it turns out that the bodies they collected weren't really dead. They are the prince, Jasimir, and his guard, Tavin, who is one of the hawks. And so they are running from the queen because the queen wants the prince dead. Because that queen is not his mother. His mother has passed. And she married Jasimir's father, and she wants him gone, especially now that she has a child of her own. And once she has full power, she will owe her power and her success to the Oleander gentry, and the crows are very afraid of the Oleander gentry because they basically just slaughter them. And Jasimir tells the crows that he has a cousin who is on his side and who will rally his troops and gather other people to help take the queen down. And so he makes a deal with Pa, who is the crow's chief, and Pa and the crows are supposed to take Jasimir and Tavin to that cousin, and in exchange they will give hawk guards to the crows to protect them from the Oleander gentry. But while they are on their way, they are being followed by the vultures, who are basically, their birthright is to be able to track other people. That's their ability, their power. And they are tracking them. And the Oleander Gentry is also tracking them. And then they are captured. And it turns out that Hangdog, one of the crows, sold them all out because he was promised that he would no longer have to be a crow. But the loophole was that he was just murdered. So he wasn't a crow, but he was also not alive. And while they were trying to escape, Pa tells Fi that he cannot go with them because he's marked, and the vultures will be able to get to him really fast. They will be able to track him wherever he goes. And so he tells Fi that it's time for her to be the chief, and it's time for her to honor his oath to the prince, and for her to guide Tavin and Jasamir to where they need to go. And that is where I am at. And I am enjoying it. Although it's not like the best thing I've ever read, like I'm definitely enjoying it. I find the plot interesting and it's very, very fast paced. Like, there's always something happening. It's always like moving really fast, which I definitely like. And the magic system with the teeth, like being able to access other people's powers through the teeth, I find it really, really interesting. I really like the relationships between the crows that were already there when the book started, and the new interactions with the prince and Tavin were also interesting. And I definitely really like Fi, the main character, and I am very curious to see how she will handle being a chief and honoring the oath that was made, because she definitely didn't seem ready mentally to be a leader, and she also doesn't really seem to trust Tavin or Jasamir. So that will definitely be interesting. And like I said, I am not obsessed with this book, but I am definitely really enjoying it. And yeah, really excited to see what happens next. Okay, I have read part 2. So while Fi, Tavin, and Jasamir were escaping, Fi used a peacock teeth to create sort of an illusion so the people who were following them would follow that illusion. And also she had some teeth from her crow friends, and one of them was from Hangdog, the guy who sold them out and was now dead, and she could feel from the teeth that he was dead. And another teeth that she had is from Pa, and she can still feel that he's alive. So I think I said in my first update that the queen was originally from the swans, and once she married into the phoenixes. And so these swans, they only have 3 gods, I think, and it's very unlikely for a swan witch to be born. But they think that the queen might be one. But the problem is that the swan witches, they are very rare because they are very dangerous. Because they can take a person's desire or wish and they can twist it and twist the person with it. And so Fi thinks that it would take only like a strand of hair from her for the queen to be able to sense her hate and her anger towards the people who caused her people's misery, and that would be enough to make Fi kill Tavin and Jasamir. So that is definitely dangerous. And throughout all the time while they're running, Fi has to use sparrow teeth, which are basically concealing them from the people who are pursuing them. And she has to use 3 at once, I think. And it's very exhausting for her. Tavin, who is the prince's guard and a hawk, he realizes that the Hawks are not exactly trustworthy. And he finally recognizes that about his own people. And he also knows that even though the prince has promised the crows that he would give them hawk guards, they would actually probably not protect them. Because, like I said, the hawks are not trustworthy. But Tavin is trying his best to keep the prince safe, which is literally his life's mission, but also to make sure that Fi and the other crows are given what they're owed and the promise is kept. And that is because Tavin and Fi have fallen in love with each other, which is really not good for either of them. And after a while of them running, the vultures who are tracking them have gotten really, really close. And also Fi is really, really weak, and she can no longer hold the concealment with the teeth. And Tavin tells her that she has to let go of the teeth or like she could die. And so she does that. And then Jasamir, the prince, says that those people are after him. If he gives himself up, they won't hurt Tavin or Fi. And Tavin's like, yeah, you're right. So he gives himself up because I don't think I mentioned this, but throughout this whole time, Fi has been putting sort of like a glamour on Tavin so he looks like the prince and like he can pass for him. And so Tavin gives himself up and then he cuts the rope or whatever they were on and he's gone. And that's where part 2 ended. And yeah, things definitely got more interesting in part 2 and it's still so fast-paced. Like, I think I said this in part 1, but I feel like in part 2 it happened even more, that there is always something happening. Like, there is not one quiet moment in this book. And I definitely really appreciate that. Also, I really like Fi, and I think I like Tavin, but I'm not really feeling them together. And I don't know if that's like my problem because I'm not a romance person. Romance is not really something I'm very into most times. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't like them. I just don't really feel a lot there. Like, I like them individually. I don't necessarily like them together. And I definitely don't really like the prince. But like I said, I am still really enjoying the plot. I am loving how fast-paced it is. And the magic with the teeth is just really, really interesting. And I'm still not like obsessed with this book, but definitely enjoying it and excited to read part 3 and see how it ends. So, remember when I said that I didn't like the prince? I take it back. Okay, so I have finished the book, and the last thing I said in my second update was that Stavin had given himself up. And this last part starts with Tavin being taken away and Fi and Jasamir running away. But soon after, they were both caught by the Oleander gentry, and their attackers seemed strange. Fi said that they seemed boneless, and they had no teeth and no eyes. And then they recognized one of their attackers as one of the vultures that they had previously met and they had left for dead. And basically that vulture was dead. And while they were being attacked, Fi decided to use some of the phoenix teeth that she still had. And since she was using them, she wasn't going to be affected by the fire. And since Jasamir was a phoenix, he also wasn't going to be affected by the fire. And so she just used the teeth and she burned their attackers, and the ones who didn't burn ran away. And so Fi and Jasamir were safe for a while. And after that was when I started liking Jasamir, because he finally realized that the person he thought he had to be a good king was not exactly the person he actually had to be. And he started comprehending just exactly how unfair life was to the crows and how easy his life was in comparison. And he definitely grew on me and Fi, and they started forming a friendship. And when they were almost getting to their allies, they were attacked by vultures again. But this time they were saved by their allies who actually rode mammoths. And so they were saved by those allies and they were taken in. But the leader of those allies told Fi that she would not be giving hawks to the crows, which was what Jasamir had promised. But it turns out that the wording of the oath wasn't exactly how it should have been, and she found some kind of loophole, and she wasn't gonna give them hawk guards. But a couple of days later, the vultures that had Pa and the other crows, and who also had Tavin, found Fi and Jasamir and the others. And so Fi smuggled Jasamir out of where they were hiding to go meet with the vultures. And she decided to use the phoenix teeth again, because the crows knew when she would attack and how she would attack and her signals, so they knew when to duck down and protect themselves. And like before, Jasamir is a phoenix, so the fire wouldn't affect him. And she also knew that Tavin would also not be affected by the fire because he was actually Jasamir's half brother, so he was half phoenix, and again, he would also not be affected by the fire. So she does use the phoenix teeth and she uses the fire, and they manage to get rid of the vultures, and they again are safe. And after they are all safe and sound, Pa makes Fi officially a chief, because he told her that she was a chief, but it was just like literally telling her, you're the chief now. But now he went through the proper ceremony and she's officially a crow chief. And it's time for the crows to leave to go on their way, continue to do their job. And Tavin tells Fi that he cannot go with her. But once Queen Rusana is gone, he's gonna go find her. And also that leader of their allies decided that she is gonna give them hawk guards after all. And she does give them the hawks, and the oath is kept, basically. But there is still a lot to do to make the world a safe and fair place for the crows. And that was basically the end of the book. So, yeah, like I said, I really started liking the prince, and I really liked his friendship with Fi. I like their friendship more than I like Tavin and Fi's relationship or whatever. So oops. But also I usually tend to like friendships more than relationships in books, and I guess in anything in general. So again, that might be my issue. And yeah, I really like the action scenes when they were fighting, and I really still like the magic thing with the teeth. I still find that really fascinating. And I really actually like the ending of the book in general. And I know that there is a second book, but it could actually stand on its own. It would be like, it's not a really closed ending, but it's also not very open. And yeah, I actually really like the way it ended. And it's time to go to my final thoughts. Okay, so I think I'm gonna start by talking about the characters. And that means mainly talking about Fi, because she was the main character and she was the only POV we got in this book. And I absolutely loved her so much. Fi was so brave and so strong, but at the same time she was also very vulnerable, and she risked and sacrificed everything for her people, and also to protect two people that she did not even know. And I just loved her personality so much. I loved seeing the world through her eyes, even though it was definitely not a pleasant world she lived in for her people, but I loved her so much. When it comes to Tavin, I started out by not trusting him, but I actually quickly started to like him. And on the other hand, Jasamir, I didn't like him for the first 2/3 of the book. but in the last third and last part of the book, he actually won me over, and I ended up really liking him. Also, when it comes to the relationship between Tavin and Fi, as I have already said, I didn't really ship it, I didn't really, feel much, but in most of the reviews I read, people actually really liked them together. So, just like I thought, it was probably my own issue, because romance is just not my thing. So, moving on to the pacing, I thought the pacing of the book was perfect because it was fast-paced enough to keep me definitely very interested, but it was not too rushed. There was definitely enough time to get to know the characters and connect with them. And especially Fi, because like I said, she was the only POV that we got, and it's always way easier to connect with the character whose POV you are following. And yeah, like I said, there was definitely enough time to get to know Fi and some of the other characters a little less, but enough for me to care about them. And also there was definitely enough time to get to know how the world works, not very deeply, but again, enough to understand, and also to understand how the magic system works. And like I've also said before, the magic system was something that I really, really loved in this book because I thought it was really interesting, like using the magic through teeth that used to belong to other people and you can access their powers. I thought that was very original and I really, really liked it. It was like my favorite thing of the book along with Fi. And yeah, I definitely had a great time reading this book and I am giving it 4 stars. And I will be reading book 2 very, very soon. I'll probably even start today, and it will definitely be my next reading vlog. But this is everything for this week's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!